And transition over to the meat and the potatoes of the show. Alrighty. There we go. All right, I am there. Excellent. Happy Friday to everybody at the time of this broadcast. It is August 6th, 2021. Appreciate you all for being here. And let's see here. There we go. All right, so what I want to do with tonight's show is I want to cover just a few topics, nothing too crazy. A couple of short ones, we'll get through them quickly. There's not much to them in terms of detail. There are a couple that I'm really going to hone in on and comb through. And one of them is going to be Starlink, and the other is going to be the FCC coverage map. Now, it's not that I'm going to spend a ton of time on them. It's just that I want to go through some details with them because I think they're probably the two most notable things in today's show. All right, now what I'm probably going to do is at the end of the show, once this thing is done broadcasting, I'm going to chop up and clip up some of the parts of the show and turn them into little video clips for people that don't watch live streams and don't want to listen to a long podcast. People have been enjoying that content, so I'll go ahead and do that for people that don't want to, tune into a long audio-only podcast or what have you. Big shout out to MS. Thank you for that. Still trying to join the army. Send us some. Okay. I wonder what happened there. I'll check my email for that. I'm surprised. I usually get to all my emails, so I do apologize for that. MS, thanks for that super chat. And Cody, thank you again for another super chat, 420. Man, you guys with the way you guys pick your numbers are incredible. We got 271 and we got 420. That's awesome. There's another gentleman, I think his name is 504. He donates $5.04 to Gigi's chats and stuff, super chats. So I've seen that. It's all good. Very kind gesture. Also, before we go on, if you're just joining us, big shout out to Gene as well. Do me a solid and vote in tonight's poll. If you go into the live chat, you will see a poll at the very top, and it asks the question, and this will become part of the show, do you turn off 5G on your smartphone? And you have 4 choices to make. I don't need anybody discussing it in the live chat now necessarily. You can if you want, but you don't have to. In fact, I don't even really encourage you to do that just yet because we'll talk about it later. But there are 4 options. I would like you to choose one if you have a 5G smartphone. If you don't have a 5G smartphone, you can't really vote because that's one of the qualifiers in this, right? So if you have a 5G smartphone, do chime in. We already have 62 votes. I'd like to see as many as possible. Before we go on with the show, please hit that like button now, and then we can go ahead and proceed. I'll wait. Just kidding. All right, so tonight's show, we're going to talk about the FCC coverage maps, and each provider had to kind of chart their own, coverage data. AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, eventually, soon enough, it shall be Dish in there as well. I'm not sure if US Cellular charted theirs or not, but I guess I got to look. I'm sure they did. But they are more of like a regional carrier, so since they're not really a national MNO, it's a little bit different for them. What's up, Mav? Let's see here. Oh, AT&T hit some 5G milestones a couple of weeks ago. I just haven't gotten around to covering it on the podcast or making a video. So I'll do that. Big shout out to Tim. Welcome to the show. Let's see. Oh, there was a SMT Patreon supporter. Big shout out to Big Lou. A longtime YouTube viewer, and such, and supporter. He had an interesting experience at a local hospital system, and he wanted to share his results. So I do want to discuss that a little bit, shine some light on some networking experience in the Big Apple in New York City in the hospital setting. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what Verizon is up to. They've got some new business features and payment methods and tools. There is some 5G expansion going on in terms of ultra wideband. Let's see here. What else we got here? Oh, the 5G off thing. Okay, so we're going to talk about that as well. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay. All right, let's start first with the AT&T 5G milestones. Now, with this topic, this information actually predates anything that's happened with the root metrics report from like the last week. So the root metrics report kind of confirms these milestones, okay? So AT&T's 5G, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit unusual in that it's not the typical 5G we see from like T-Mobile. So like T-Mobile has dedicated spectrum on dedicated NR bands. What I mean is they have N71 and then they have LTE or band 71. Those channels are separate. They don't use DSS, dynamic spectrum sharing. So since they have dedicated bandwidth specifically for NR 5G, right, N71, typically people are seeing like 10 or 15 megahertz of it, okay? They have N41, which is another dedicated 5G band, right? It's mid-band. Wider channels, really fast, great. AT&T doesn't really have it all that much, right? They don't have it like T-Mobile does, for example. What AT&T has been doing mostly is one skinny, ultra skinny, dedicated low band, right? N5. So that's one channel of 5G they have. And then they're DSSing some mid-band. So they're DSSing N2. Our expectations for AT&T's 5G, they need to be tempered. They don't have the dedicated wider channels that we see on T-Mobile. Same thing with Verizon. They're DSSing band 5. I think DSS for band 2 might be happening in some places. N66, I don't know. All right, DSS kind of sucks. You don't look at DSS and say to yourself, man, this is really going to change my experience. But in the case of AT&T, their 5G is technically reaching. Okay, so here's the milestone. They have just officially reached, and this was a few weeks ago, 250 million pops covered with their 5G. So essentially, that tells us that their 5G signal, when you're going around the country, you will have 5G icons in the upper right-hand corner of your 5G device. You'll have it a lot. The icon will show up. The milestone was reached ahead of schedule, according to AT&T. According to them, self-estimates, they beat it by 6 months. So they're further along than where they thought they would be, and that's good. So the 5G we're speaking of is N5, 850 megahertz, low band. Not very fast. The DSS version of band 2, N2, is PCS. That's 1.9 gigahertz mid-band. It's a shared band. It's DSS, LTE, and 5G. Neither of these are going to be very fast. Oftentimes, the LTE and the 5GE, the legendary 5GE, is faster because it does get multiple channels aggregated together. So you get like more channel combinations, which essentially gives you access to more bandwidth. So more channels, faster, usually. But there you go. It's the 5G icon game. Another, issue that we see. In terms of C-band, when things are going to get real for AT&T, they're going to get a 40 megahertz channel later on this year. They're continuing to build that out now, getting infrastructure together, upgrading tower sites and preparing them with radios and antennas for C-band. Whatever else needs to be upgraded, routers and whatever tower hardware has to be done. And, and backhaul, whatever fiber optic is going to be needed to push the spectrum as best as they can. All right, so we'll be seeing N77, N78 with C-band from pretty much all the carriers starting later this year, 3.7 gigahertz. Eventually, we'll be seeing AT&T with like a 80 to 100 megahertz channel bandwidth, which is awesome. That'll be nice and fast. Very similar to what we are seeing with T-Mobile's N41 now. So a lot of people are showing us 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 megabits per second on T-Mobile's N41. So that's what we can expect to see with C-band as well. Another 5G news, AT&T's 5G Plus, their millimeter wave. That's on the move also. We're seeing that expand as well. It's now in 40 markets. So that's good. You guys will be seeing it around the U.S. in different cities. It is most definitely correlated with places that have high data traffic demand. So we're talking about urban, city centers. We're talking about stadiums, arenas, concert venues. I've seen quite a bit of AT&T's millimeter wave 5G plus downtown in the CLE. Makes sense. You got a lot of ongoers. There's concerts and a lot of people in the nightlife and such. And it makes sense for that application. But where AT&T is going to start focusing on as well is they're going to start putting it in airports. There was a tweet this morning from Josh, another viewer and subscriber, and he mentioned it. And I was tweeting back at him, and I said, when I found out that AT&T was doing this, I smiled real big, because an airport makes total sense. Everybody gets off, they go to these baggage claims, and then they go to the terminals, for arrivals, and the networks can get bogged down very easily. You got Ubers, you got taxis, you have people that work in the facility, you have everybody that's getting off the planes and trying to call for their ride, and all these. It makes perfect sense to be on millimeter wave. Seriously. People start watching video while they're waiting for rides. Makes perfect sense to me. One could argue bus stations and train stations would also fit the bill. So I'm all for it. I think that's really smart by AT&T to kind of get out in front. They want to be in 7 airports by the end of this year to have the millimeter wave configured and installed. They want to be in 25 airports by the end of next year. So the gates, the baggage claims, the terminals have all those covered with the ultra capacity of millimeter wave. I'm assuming that it's also great because there's not going to be any type of interference issues. I don't know what type of higher frequencies are transmitted around the airports, so hopefully that works out. Otherwise, they created another problem for themselves. So arenas, stadiums, entertainment venues, concerts, festivals, it all makes sense. Now you could throw airports in there. I think it works. I think Verizon should probably be doing this as well. T-Mobile could too. I don't know. So we'll see how that goes for the other carriers. And it looks like AT&T is also going to be installing millimeter wave at their retail stores. That's brilliant. That's what Verizon does. You want to show people what your 5G can do, and that's a piece of it. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't want to deceive customers. Right? You don't want to walk into an AT&T store. They sell you on a 5G phone. They sell you on these 5G access things, and there's no millimeter wave in your market, but they showed it to you at the store. So you get like 1.7 gigabits per second on fast.com and on Ookla, and then you never connect to 5G Plus like ever again. That's a little deceiving. But in markets that do have 5G Plus for AT&T, I think it's fair. I think the retail stores should have them there so they could show people, here are some of the network elements that we have. I think that's good. Kind of like showing what your network can do. So that's, for that millimeter wave, the 5G Plus, it's N260. It's 39 gigahertz. AT&T is doing different combinations of antennas and signals for like millimeter wave, LAA, the unlicensed 5.2 gigahertz. They've been doing a lot with those higher frequencies to get capacity. So those CRAN have all types of incredible configurations. They also do low band and traditional mid band like PCS and AWS and band 14 and all that. So it's great. I love the CRAN setup. AT&T is really starting to densify and really build out in these places. I've been impressed by what AT&T has done with small cells in the CLE, and a lot of the sites haven't even been turned on yet. I don't know if they still have to just run the fiber, right, and get fiber optic backhaul to those sites so they can, start using and having people connected to them. But these CRAN sites are great. They get full LTE upgrades, they get full 5G upgrades, and then they get some really interesting stuff sometimes with like, band 46, which is LTE. It doesn't reach very far, but it is highly capacitive and is very fast. Millimeter wave's incredible. Like, these are incredible capacity opportunities for them to really support the network, which is why I tell people, if you live in markets that have 5G plus millimeter wave and have all these CRAN, it makes sense to have an upgraded device. Running the iPhone 6 in 2021 is a losing proposition. If you're on the AT&T network, T-Mobile network, and Verizon network, there's so many new elements to the networks, right? So just my take, upgrade your phone so you can get all that stuff. First airports for AT&T's millimeter wave, the 5G plus, they mentioned Dallas, Los Angeles, and Denver. All right, so that's pretty cool. They're going to also continue a partnership with Boingo, which I think is like some kind of a Wi-Fi partnership that they have. I'm not familiar with it. I have read articles where they mentioned it. They mentioned the partnership being in LaGuardia, JFK, so we're talking about the two big ones in New York City, and Midway in Chicago, and O'Hare as well. So those are big-time hubs. Makes total sense for AT&T to do this. The SMT takeaways for what AT&T is doing there. Number one, traffic in these airports are picking up. Traffic in these venues is picking up. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. Put all the illness stuff aside. Who knows? But this is millimeter wave and 5G Plus's opportunity to shine. All right. So if things are to stay somewhat mostly flowing with people coming and going, capacity is going to be needed, whether it's in airports or whatever. Also, I think the second thing here is the unlimited elite plans are completely non-deprioed, right? Full access all the time, massive amounts of tethering hotspot data. These high access plans need high capacity networking. This allows you to do that a little bit better, right? The more it scales, the better. And get yourself a compatible device, because as this stuff builds out, you're going to want millimeter wave access. For the iPhone, it starts with the iPhone 12, that generation and moving forward. For Android, you're talking about the Google Pixel 5 and forward. For Samsung, it goes back probably really to the S20 generation. The S10 Plus 5G variation, it's I don't know, that's like first gen 5G that was terrible. So really it starts with the S20. Definitely the S21's even better. I'd say starting this next generation of phones with the next generation of modem technology, the modem should get a lot better, picking up 5G signals like millimeter wave a lot more effectively. So getting connected, latching on, and having quality connectivity. Just my opinion, But hang on tight. This stuff's about to get really good. Nice job by AT&T getting millimeter wave where it should be. All right. Next piece of news. What do I got for you guys? Okay, this one is actually from Patreon supporter, SMT YouTube channel, subscriber, viewer, longtime supporter. Big Lou. Appreciate you, bro. He was sharing and disclosing some information to me based on an experience that he had at a hospital system in New York City. And it was interesting. I was kind of surprised by this. One of the things that he told me is that now that he's actually testing out Los Mobile, it's powered by the Death Star network, Big Blue. He had an appointment at a hospital system, just a follow-up visit, and he had some interesting findings as he tested both Verizon and AT&T. So just a little background, Big Lou switched from, I think, T-Mobile to Verizon a couple of years ago. He's been wanting to try AT&T because he's been hearing great things about it. He got a secondary phone. I think he put it inside of a Pixel. He put his Los Mobile line in there, so he's got Big Blue on there now. So he could kind of test both networks. He wanted to compare. And he was telling me that while he was there at the hospital system, Verizon had millimeter wave nodes. Let me just tell you guys, that is absolutely tremendous. That is beautiful. That is fantastic engineering. What they're basically doing by putting millimeter wave at the hospital is you are offloading all the action in the parking lot, all the action around the premises, and you're taking all that traffic off of the other channels. So you're alleviating band 13, PCS, band 2, 66, band 5 if they got it there, which I'm not sure if they do in New York City. They're taking all that LTE traffic away, and they're putting it onto millimeter wave as much as possible. I dig it. It's wonderful. And it's going to be super fast, right? So people can do whatever they got to do. I don't know. You're outside in the parking lot. I don't know. Whatever. Now, Verizon also does DAS systems, right? Indoor DAS systems. They do outdoor DAS systems too. They got small cells all over the place. We know how Verizon does their thing. So he was testing on his S21 Ultra with his Verizon access. And he was getting 1.7 gigabits per second on the downlink, 51 megabits per second on the uplink. I think his ping was like 15 milliseconds. All that checks out phenomenal. Millimeter wave carrying the mail outdoors at the hospital for Verizon. The second part of his testing was AT&T. It was in his Pixel. I think he either had a 4A 5G or a Pixel 5. I forget which one. Regardless, they're the same exact phone when it comes to cellular. It's got the same modem technology and such. But he was telling me AT&T was having big problems. He was telling me it was having issues connecting. It wasn't connecting whatsoever. No network available when he was at the hospital. He tried both the 5G LTE setting and the 5G setting. Pro tip, on the Google Pixel 5 and 4A 5G, if you put the phone into low battery mode, it kicks it out of 5G and puts it into LTE. Okay. So he was having issues with AT&T on his Google Pixel 5. Okay, so I think I did note that. He said he had to walk roughly about 2 blocks away from the hospital in order for it to work. So to me, it doesn't sound like it was congestion. To me, it sounded like there was either a site was down or there was network modifications happening. That's not the time and the place to have network issues, not at a hospital. I mean, we've talked about this a lot with T-Mobile's issues at hospitals with certain bands and 5G and all that. So very concerning here. I'm trying to see if I can maybe pronounce the name of this hospital. Maimonides Hospital. My handwriting's terrible, by the way, on this. I totally slaughtered the spelling, so I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Anyways, he was doing all of his testing outdoors. I don't know if he did any indoor testing at the time. He did say he wanted to do a follow-up where he would test those networks inside the hospital. So hospitals and hospital systems continue to be troubled spots for the carriers. So I think this is where you could see where situations like, T-Mobile with their NR bands, with their 5G, they're working through those issues. We've seen issues with N71 and N41 in my own personal experiences. Carlos has, documented this in Vegas as well. So the other bands start to do more carrying of the load. Some people might have to turn 5G off and go into LTE, right? So Michael, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, cool. Gotcha. Yeah, I was hoping I pronounced that right. So AT&T having signal troubles there or whatever was going on, maybe they need indoor and outdoor DAS. Maybe they need small cells. I don't know. Maybe it was just a fluke and something was going on. I don't know. Who knows? But something was going on. So you can go, and maybe it comes down one day you have to go to the hospital for something. And you could test carriers. You can see how it performs there. But I think it goes to show you that all carriers, we saw T-Mobile having problems. Now we're seeing AT&T having problems. I wouldn't doubt it if somewhere in the United States Verizon is having problems at a hospital too. It would not surprise me. It's tough. There's interference, there's network load. There's a lot of things to deal with. Yeah, and Pete mentions the indoor propagation problems. Steel, rebar, concrete, medical equipment, you've got frequency interference. Yeah, it's all that's real. Most definitely. Good point, Pete. Okay. So thank you for sharing that, Big Lou. Anecdotal experience there that I think a lot of people can kind of apply to your use cases and see if it's like that where you are. Hopefully, whenever you go to the hospital, you got the signal and your carrier is there for you. All right, let's talk about this next topic. Wow, we're already 37 minutes into the show. Incredible. Okay. All right, this next bit of news out of Verizon. Verizon Business has a new feature. I guess we'll call it like a business tool. 5G contactless payments. They got to deal with MasterCard. All right, so this is basically an autonomous checkout. This will be used in the retail setting. You got transactions, you got a business. This can help you get the job done. What's up, Bird? Let's see. Enterprise business. You got revolutionary 5G branding and all that going on. Again, Verizon's going to be big for agency, enterprise, and business when it comes to network as a service. And then they can offer these tools as well to help people, properly function in the retail space. It uses NFC connectivity for merchants and customers at the point of sales terminals. All right, so when people got to pay for stuff. They also have a computer vision technology that's going to work similarly. They've got the cloud computing options now within Verizon's offers. No clerk, no attendant required, right? It's autonomous checkout, no problems. I think this is going to be really nice when Verizon probably has a deal with Amazon with their Go stores. I think Verizon might be in on that. I think Dish is going to want to get in there too. That would make sense. We'll see who gets the business. I mean, who's got the AWS partnerships, right? So I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think this is going to be a pretty big thing. I mean, and this is something I talked to Moose about, and Moose tends to disagree. I think that the use cases for 5G, there's things that we don't even know exist yet that are going to be happening and leveraging 5G technology. So this is another one of those use cases. This is what we know now, but there's going to be more. All right, so I don't know. Verizon could be a huge key cog in this type of a service. It's another 5G use case. Like I said, Hans is doing a pretty good job. For those of you that know who that is, that's Hans Vestberg. He's the CEO of Verizon. You can question a lot of things about Hans Vestberg. He's not really concerned about growth. He's not very competitive when it comes to pricing. You can kind of see the business blueprint. A lot of people aren't fond of that. Some people say that Verizon prices out the common consumer and the average consumer. They're a very premium company, and they've always been that way, but they even feel that way more so under Hans Vestberg. You know, he's been the CEO for a few years now. And honestly, I don't see it changing under him. I don't think they get cheaper under him. I don't even know if they really, like, to say they're going to be a value player in the game. I don't know if that happens, because with value comes some pricing, right? Some negotiation there. His idea of value is, we'll give you a lot, but you're going to have to pay a lot, right? So, I mean, you get what you pay for. They believe in that, but they're not going to be cheap. They're never going to be cheaper than T-Mobile. They're never going to be cheaper than AT&T, in my opinion. Do I think the other carriers will be doing similar things to Verizon? Probably, but Verizon's getting way out in front in these types of use cases with enterprise and business. So Verizon's got the name notoriety. They've got the recognition. They've got the mind share when it comes to stuff like this. That's the way they want it. They want it to be out in front. They've got deals with like Walgreens and Walmart. They've got deals with all these companies and healthcare systems. All that stuff, all these accounts, it's why they're ahead, right? They've been kind of sowing these seeds for a couple of years. And they were up, with Apple when they brought out the 5G iPhone 12 and all that. This is what Verizon does. So I think, like it or not, agree or disagree, I don't think it really matters. They are the big name in 5G in business right now. AT&T will get there very soon. I think eventually T-Mobile gets there too. T-Mobile's got a network integration process they're going through. They've got a merger process they're going through. They got a lot on their plate. They've got a network they're trying to build out and fill in some gaps, and they're trying to do home internet. They got a lot going on, and they're in a transition period with Sprint, so they'll get there. But Verizon does seem to be on the cutting edge of all this stuff. Okay, all right, let's go over to this next story from Verizon. This is kind of like part 2 to the Verizon. Verizon adds more fixed wireless access markets, including 5G business broadband. All right, so let's take a look at what they're doing here. They have extended the reach of their 5G home and 5G business offerings. They've added 5 more cities as recently, I think, as last week or the week before, so this is pretty new. They are saying to expect more cities before the end of this year. They also added the Blue Jeans video calling and conferencing software as a business solution to people that utilize the 5G business solution. So what they're calling, quote, Verizon One Talk services, end quote, they throw in an additional line. What they call Meetings by Verizon is another tool that they're going to give these companies and businesses. They're basically giving you a suite of business tools to help you better function as a business. Whether it's remote functionality in workplace, work from home, in the office, I don't know, whatever the business is. And they're going to give you some tools for you to kind of enhance your operations. They added the 5 markets, as stated earlier: Gresham, Oregon; Albuquerque, New Mexico; Austin, Texas; Little Rock, Arkansas; and then Nashville, Tennessee. Big shout out to my friend on Twitter, Ian, who said he did not think he was ever going to get ultra wideband in Austin, Texas anytime soon. There you go, my dude. It's there. Now, I don't know if it's like on your front door. I'm just saying it's there. So now you can start looking for it, right? And that should be something to be excited about. They're also going to pay or give a value of $1,500 for early termination fees for switchers. So let's say you're using AT&T fiber, or using Comcast or Cox or Charter or CenturyLink. I don't know, whatever you're using for business. They'll pay up to $1,500 in business early term fees to get you to switch, and they will also price lock the Verizon business price for up to 10 years. I don't know if that's good or bad. A lot of people see price locks as bad, right? But I don't think they're giving you a contract. They're just saying we won't charge you more, right? So that's the price you'll get. So if there are price increases, you won't be subjected to it. The ultra wideband service that this is pushed through is millimeter wave only for now. Later on this year, we will be seeing C-band deploying, obviously. So then that becomes an additional spectrum frequency that we'll be seeing deployed on the Verizon network. And that gives you more opportunities for connectivities. Then these types of connections can actually grow and reach more people. Verizon was quoted as saying, "We are ahead of schedule in regards to their business penetration." A few weeks ago, prior to this announcement, they added 18 markets of ultra-wideband. Verizon is basically putting the 5G home, the ultra-wideband. They're putting it wherever cable ISPs are either lacking, people don't have options, or ISPs are terrible. So if they're going to go places where the customer care is crappy, where the service is unreliable, they're just going to feast on those customers who are dying to switch and get a new competitor. So wherever, I don't know, where there isn't fiber, basically, uniform availability of fiber, maybe fiber is available in pockets, stuff like that. So Verizon is strategically putting these services in places where they know they can capitalize. They've got 47 total cities or markets where 5G business is available. I think the 5G ultra-wideband mobility, so we're talking about like cell phone service, that's available in 75 plus markets. And I think for a grand total of 40 United States. All right. So the service is growing, maybe not as fast as we'd like to see, but it's getting there. They are installing 14, 15, 16, 17,000 millimeter wave nodes annually. They're making it more ubiquitous in the current markets. They're adding markets all the time. The connectivity is getting better. It's an incredible technology that should only improve with time as we get newer repeater technologies, pivots, echoes, indoor solutions. It's going to be great. In terms of the 5G business, it's on tiered data plans. So it's, the higher speeds you're going to be paying more for. It's a little bit more expensive. In my opinion, I don't know if it's all that competitive from a general standpoint, but I always know that business is always more expensive, right? So I don't know. You guys can take the pricing as you may. $69 a month for 100 megabits per second, $99 a month for 200 megabits per second, 400 megabits per second is $199. That must be new pricing because they threw different pricing at me at the bakery that was a little bit more competitive and faster. So I'm not sure what's up with that pricing, but in my opinion, that's a little bit expensive. And if you've got fiber options, these prices don't compete. Because the 400 megabits for $200, I mean, business fiber is usually $200, but you're going to get gig symmetrical, right? The slowest you're going to get is like 500 symmetrical. So I'm surprised by that, but we'll see. I mean, maybe it is better than a lot of people's prices. Now, when it comes to 5G home, people using it residential, I'm getting over gigabit speed. I'm not getting throttled or deprioed or tiered. And they're telling people, you should be getting an average of 400 megabits per second. They're charging people $80 a month for that, $70 if you put it on auto pay, and then they're doing $50 a month if you have it on auto pay and you have Verizon wireless accounts. So I'm a little bit confused by the pricing. I do think they're going to have to fix that, adjust that to make it more competitive to get people in. You've seen what T-Mobile has been doing to try to get people in. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But just to let you guys know, an update to Verizon's ultra-wideband 5G home and 5G business. Okay, let's see what we got here. Next story. 5G is the next big thing. But in my opinion, it's not the only thing to really think about. In fact, it's probably a small piece of what you should be thinking about. In my opinion, overall networking is the most important thing. An available network is a key item for people when they think about cellular. You don't get a wireless or mobility provider based on how much 5G they have or how fast their 5G is. You need uniform coverage. That is literally the most important thing. Because if you have 95% of your cellular experience is 1,000 megabits per second, 1,000 down, 100 up, 95% of the time. But 5% of the time, the network is disconnecting, calls are dropping, no service, no signal. You can't do anything for that 5% of the time. That is make or break for a carrier. So that's important. So what the FCC did, which is great, I'm so glad they did this. They got a map for all major mobile network operators in the United States. I can't believe it actually happened. The FCC is actually trying to do something good. You see, you get Ajit Pai out of there, and now you're getting progress. Big shout out to Jessica Rosenworcel, the acting head commissioner of the FCC. I don't know why we still need a fifth commissioner, and you might as well just give her the gig full time. Anyways, the map shows all of the mobile connectivity for an area. It's not specifically mapping 5G or anything like that. It's like LTE and calling and data is available. All right. So, and to be fair and to be honest about it, I mean, what do you want better than that? It's an FCC map. Do you really care if there's an icon that says, 5G or 4G LTE? You know what I mean? So, let's see here. I'm happy about this. Honestly, guys, I mean, could you ask for more first step from the FCC? It's a great first step. I'm not saying we've won the war, but it's a nice battle to take a W in. So we got availability of networking across the entire great country of the USA. Previously, maps have been horribly inaccurate. They've been incredibly inadequate and not really helpful to people to make a decision on what carrier to use. They've been essentially useless because carriers have been lying about their mapping. So all this in response to new legislation that was passed, I think, March of last year, back in 2020, in the attempt to try to close the digital divide and actually get the carriers accountable for having some semblance of a network availability visual tool. All right, a diagram, if you will. The map is fully interactive. You guys can access it at the FCC homepage. They've got Verizon, red. They've got AT&T blue, and they've got T-Mobile, which is pink. They've got the colors in there. It's color-coded. It's interactive. It's got an overlay feature where you can see all the networks intermingled and see where the coverage gaps are for each carrier. That's interesting, right? You see where the gaps are for T-Mobile. You see where the gaps are for Verizon and AT&T, respectively. The mapping has LTE, voice coverage, and both mapped together. So this would be like, well, why do I want to know that? Why do I want to see like voice coverage versus LTE? Well, the LTE is going to be data for what you want to do. That's going to require a lot of, gigs of data, right? Like you're going to be streaming video. You're going to be watching Netflix. You're on the road going through, half of Missouri. Well, if you know that an area only has calling, you have your expectations to be realistic. Oh, I can't watch Netflix in the back seat of the Uber because there's no coverage in the spot. Thanks, Luna. Appreciate you. Let's see here. The calling versus video streaming, I think that's pretty cool. Different demands, different expectations. Again, 5G is not covered. The FCC defined 4G LTE as 5 megabits per second down, 1 megabit per second up. Because I think the reason they did that is you get HD video capable, and then for uplink, 1 megabit, I think you could do a video call too, right? So like FaceTime, Duo, whatever, right? And you might be able to upload some shorter videos. It's a good start. I'm very happy about this. There's a lot of work to do. Obviously, the 5G piece has to get mapped as well. I think the definition of broadband needs to be fixed too. 5x1 is really low-hanging fruit. I think it's got to come up. I think it's got to come up to like maybe 20x5 or something like that. Because, I mean, 5x1 is just really low. But in some places, you could imagine just getting a signal, a low-band signal, to have some kind of data transmission is going to be difficult to do. So, like I said, it's a good start. Areas where carriers have coverage, areas where they may only be one carrier could have usable service. Now you can make a better decision. What I noticed is when I was looking at the map, west of the Mississippi, just west of Mississippi, those next states right over, they're okay. Everything east of that is good, mostly. But man, the west, man, there are parts of Nevada, there are parts of Montana, Idaho. Man, there's like no coverage, and it's not just AT&T or Verizon. It's not just T-Mobile. You could see clearly where the gaps are. Now, there are certain places where Verizon has coverage and nobody else does. And there are some places where T-Mobile has coverage too, where nobody else does. So it's kind of like you look at the map and you make a decision. How often am I in those places? Does it make sense for me to leave AT&T for Verizon, or does it make sense for me to leave Verizon for T-Mobile, or whatever that may be? But, man, these maps do not match carrier maps. The carrier maps, the ones that you guys see on websites, the ones that you see on advertisements, commercials, the stuff that's on their marketing material, surprise, surprise, the carriers be lying. Hashtag carriers capping. Seriously, man. What's up, DGAF? They lying, man. Nuts. Full of it, man, with their coverage. Glad to see this is happening. Very happy for that. FCC maps, baby. All right, last story, and then we're going to wrap up the show. All right. Last call for anybody who wants to vote in the poll. The poll is in the live chat. You'll see the question. We got 125 votes. That's incredible. Thank you all for voting. Also, hit the like button if you haven't done that yet. The question in the poll: do you turn off 5G on your smartphone? Meaning you have a 5G smartphone and you don't enjoy it. It's not good. It degrades your quality or experience on your smartphone, so you turn it off and you go into LTE. Wow. So the 5G story here is that people are down on 5G networking as of right now. They're looking at these 5G technologies. They're not impressed in the everyday usage. So 5G handset adoption is actually kicking up pretty nicely. It's increasing every quarter, every year for the last couple of years. Mobile network operators are upgrading the networks, preparing them for 5th gen networking. They're densifying their networks. They're adding all of the 5G gear, right? We've talked about the upgrades to the radios, the antennas. They're buying spectrum by the billions, tens of billions if you're Verizon, tens of billions if you're AT&T, tens of billions if you're Sprint. Or, T-Mobile and Sprint. Remember, they paid for Sprint, right? They took on a lot of debt. It was a $26 billion transaction. They bought more spectrum and C-band. It's expensive to do 5G. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, our bills are not going up. They will. And it won't be because of the merger. It's going to be because of 5G. Anyways, users are turning off 5G. They're turning it off. They're saying this is not worth it. What's the point? There's a lot of issues associated with 5G in the early onset of things, right? It's early in the game. It's in the infancy stages, right? About 40% of 5G phone owners are actually turning off the 5G setting. That's really high considering this is supposed to be the next gen network technology that's supposed to like facilitate, the future of connectivity. The study had 1,300 participants or respondents that don't really seem impressed with 5G thus far. Here's how some of the breakdown looked at when I was looking at the pie chart. All right, they said 5G always active as an option. 50% of users leaving 5G on, never touching it. 39.4% of the respondents are turning 5G off completely. It is off. All right. So the missing percentage that I couldn't quantify or qualify, I should say, people didn't know how to maybe disable 5G, so they didn't know how to respond to this. Or people didn't know how to enable 5G after they turned off 5G, or they forgot. I don't know what that was. But like 10% of users, which I think some of you here on the channel, the viewers of the YouTube channel, the Patreon supporters, those that follow us on Twitter and such, the Discord, all that, you guys probably turn your 5G on and off as needed. And that's where they were talking about this. 10% of users are turning 5G on or off kind of on demand based on the capacity that's available at the time, coverage advantages. For example, T-Mobile's got standalone 5G, which reaches really nicely with N71. Having 5G on would help you a lot with an iPhone, right? For Verizon with DSS, people are having trouble with it. Same thing with AT&T. You would turn 5G off. In fact, when I test AT&T's 5G, I turn it off, and all of a sudden my speeds double, right? So the 5G, I'm getting 50 megabits. I turn it off. I go into 5GE, LTE, and it's like 150. It's crazy. So with AT&T, it's like 5G versus LTE. LTE is better. With Verizon, ultra wideband, you want to have 5G on. If it's nationwide, you might want to just turn it off for LTE. Here are some of the comments from those that responded in the story. One person said, I turn off 5G because the signal quality is poor. So I think what's happening for some of those people is the phone wants to connect to 5G. It's programmed to prefer 5G, but it might be at a further away site, and then that reduces the signal quality and the reliability piece. Well, if they turned off 5G, they would connect to a nearby tower site that's running LTE because 5G is not on there. Makes sense to turn 5G off. Okay. Another person responded by saying LTE is faster. Something tells me that person either has only T-Mobile N71 and their LTE is faster than the low-band 5G, or they have AT&T DSS, right? Like I told you, the 5G here is slower than the 5GE or LTE from AT&T. And then it could be the same situation Verizon. They don't have millimeter wave out there. They turn the 5G off, and all of a sudden the LTE performs better. Another person responded by saying, I turn off 5G to conserve battery life, to extend battery life. One other person actually name-dropped T-Mobile and said, T-Mobile 5G loses connection frequently on my Pixel 5. So now it appears that maybe there is specific firmware that makes certain networks run more reliably. Well, the Pixel is not a carrier phone. It doesn't have carrier firmware. Maybe it doesn't play nicely with some of the configurations that some of the sites have and what's going on with the T-Mobile network. So this guy's like, I turn it off because it disconnects all the time. Right? So on his Pixel 5, he's turning off 5G on T-Mobile. I think he's just doing he or she is just doing what's good for them. I mean, it's not to blast any particular carrier, but they're just trying to get the most reliable thing. One person went on to comment and say, I have to airplane mode my phone too much because of 5G. Way too much network resetting. That's sad. Another person says, I turned off 5G one time. The day I got my phone. You're telling me that's not tremendous? Hashtag tremendous to the person that said, I turned off 5G once the day I got my 5G phone. So basically, I think they turned it. It was on by default. They connected to it, and they're like, this is trash. I don't want it. I'm just going to put my phone in LTE. They probably saw the battery life was draining. They didn't see the capacity advantage. They didn't see the reliability improving or the range. They're like, what's the point? Dana, what up, brother? Thank you, man. I appreciate that super chat, man. Man, I don't know if I missed any other super chats, but big shout out to my homie, Tana So Lit. Mods, if I could please get a link to his channel. And for those of you that enjoy the music, the instrumentals on my shows, my podcasts, my videos, that is the man to see, Tana So Lit. You guys can check him out at chosenbeats.club. Check it out. Big shout out to Kevin. Thank you for that super chat as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for those kind and generous donations. So, what's our takeaway from this little study here? Okay? Quality matters. People are not stupid. They're not buying this 5G brouhaha. It's all cap. Low band is not exciting. You know, mid band is, millimeter wave is, low band. I mean, maybe it brings signal in the standalone offer. Maybe, I don't know. But the 5G icon, right? It's just not helping people out, you know. Reliability matters. Quality matters. Ubiquity matters. We need 5G network gear on more than just a handful of sites in a county or more than a handful of sites in a city. It's got to scale. It's going to happen. It's just going to take time. We need a dense 5G network grid. Get what I'm saying? Small cells with 5G, macros with 5G, the whole shebang. It's going to take some time. And to follow up the Sneed Mobile Tech poll in the live chat, do you turn off 5G on your smartphone? The numbers are in. And it looks like most of you say, no, I don't turn it off. 50% of people do not turn off 5G. 50%. As needed, 31%. So that's good. You're in control of your situation. Yes, it stays off, came in at 14%. And then 4% of people said you can turn off 5G. That means they didn't even know you could do that. So, no, half of the people out there don't turn off 5G. So the numbers actually are kind of sort of similar to what they see in the study. If I add up the numbers, 50% said no, 45% said yes, it stays off. Or no, as needed or yes, it stays off, 45%. And then 4% for didn't even know that you could turn off 5G. Incredible. All right, last story for today, and this one's going to be kind of quick. This one's going to be a teaser for a later show that I do. Okay, I'm going to just kind of quickly go over this. This will kind of be the appetizer for a later part of the podcast on another show. Starlink is doing really good. Like not regular good. Like really, really nice. I think Starlink has overachieved up to this point, not in how many people it's covering, but in the performance it's giving to the people that they've given the service to. Hey, appreciate you, John. Thank you for that super chat. Hey, man, you got it, bro. Absolutely. Appreciate your support. Thank you for that. Okay, so SpaceX puts up these constellations of sites, right? They're satellites. They're transmitting and broadcasting wireless internet to people's homes. Now they're doing RVs. They're going to start doing boats and trucks and stuff. It's pretty cool. Satellite dishes in people's homes. The numbers that they're showing in performance are really competitive, not by just satellite standards, but by terrestrial standards. Let's take a look at some of these numbers. Listen to some of these. Satellite internet performance versus fixed broadband in the U.S. The reason they're comparing those two is because fixed broadband is a common technology that we see in like rural America and extended parts, mountainous, hilly areas where typically we don't see fiber getting installed or cable operators. So it makes sense to compare the two. Starlink, HughesNet, Viasat, and then fixed wireless. Starlink blows everybody out of the water. It's not even close. And this is as of Q2 2021. The data can be found at the Ookla website, ookla.com. Starlink has a download average of 97.23 megabits per second. Uplink is almost 14 megabits. The latency is 45 milliseconds. In my opinion, those numbers are absolutely tremendous for a satellite operator. Here's why I say that. HughesNet comes in at just under 20 megabits down, just above 2 megabits up, and latency at 724 milliseconds. Are you guys, like, that's incredibly distinguishable. Starlink competes with any terrestrial offer. You're basically getting 100 down, 14 or 15 up with 45 millisecond ping. That's better than DSL. That's better than a lot of cable operators, especially for uplink. Some cable operators are giving you 5 uplink and 10 uplink. These are average speeds. Viasat is even slower than HughesNet. Viasat's at 18 down, right? So they can't even get to 20 down. The uplink average is about 3 megabits per second. Their ping time is like 630 milliseconds. That's terrible. There lies the problem, the quality of the connection. Satellite's difficult, but Starlink's doing it. Lastly, fixed wireless access. They do a pretty nice job of getting some decent downlink. They're at an average of 115 megabits. The uplink is good too. It's at 17. The latency's at 14 milliseconds. So in my opinion, Starlink is competitive with fixed wireless access, which is terrestrial tower sites. It's a lot easier to do tower sites than to do satellites. That's a huge investment. I mean, tower sites are expensive too, but come on, man, let's be realistic here. Starlink is competitive with terrestrial offers in performance. Oh, and by the way, Starlink is cheaper than most fixed wireless access. It really is. I'm going to give you guys some ideas of where the testing is coming from. Washington State, very forested. Oregon, Northern and Central California, a little bit of SoCal, a lot of Southern Nevada. What is it? What's in the? Oh no, that's Arizona. I'm looking at the map. I'd say it's probably covering 70 or 80% of Arizona, and then just a little bit north and west. In Nevada, you've got like Vegas and Reno, Northern Nevada too. Wow. A couple little spots in Texas. Maine is covered really nicely, and they're getting average speeds above 150 megabits. Wow, this is really encouraging. And by the way, these speeds are going to get better too, because they're going to launch more of those satellites, those constellations of satellites. It's just going to get better and better. Wow. Oh, and it's not just, they're not just competing in the U.S., they're competing in Canada with those operators. Let's see how they're doing in France. Oh, they're killing France. Starlink's better than every fixed operator in France. Let's look at Germany. They have double the capacity of fixed wireless connections in Germany. Let's see here. Here's New Zealand. They've got more than New Zealand too, about double. UK, they're doubling the UK, more than double. Wow. I don't know if you guys are noticing this, but and Carlos has been testing it. Big shout out to him. He's there in the live chat. I think Starlink is a real deal. I actually was a doubter. And then when they first launched, it was kind of crappy. It was very limited. We weren't really seeing capacitive speeds and stuff like that. In my opinion, if Starlink is this good now, it's still in beta, right? It's still in kind of like the pilot mode. Man, this is going to help a lot of people. So, in my opinion, I mean, if you got a good fixed wireless option, good for you. If you want another option, you're going to get it with Starlink. If your cable ISP is absolute trash like mine, you might be thinking about Starlink. Now, it's not going to replace fiber, right? It is absolutely not designed to compete with fiber at all. But man, I'm really excited about Starlink. I'm a believer. Now, I am a big believer in fixed wireless access too. Like, I think Verizon and T-Mobile are going to find a lot of success in their home internet over wireless broadband. But Starlink is going to be legit. $99 a month. I think the the gear cost is going to start coming down. It's going to be a little bit cheaper. They don't have to charge people $400 anymore. They can get that down to like $250, and it's really a deposit more than anything. I think it's going to be a better go. I'm thinking about just trying it, man. Until they get AT&T fiber here at the homestead, you know, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll try it. I could always just create the content on the channel, right? All right, my good people. Thank you for hanging out, and that pretty much wraps the show. Let's go ahead and do the outro parts. If it is your first time here, my good people, do me a solid. Subscribe. If you like what you saw, if you like what you heard, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything to do so. And go ahead and turn on all notifications so that way you never miss an upload or when I go live. Also, there is a link in the description box for the Patreon page if you want to support production here on the channel, as well as get exclusive access to videos found nowhere else, Patreon exclusive live streams and podcasts, early access to YouTube videos and stuff like that. We've got a Los Mobile discount, kind of like a party pay situation for Los Mobile on Patreon. So if you want a discount, you want to try Los Mobile, that's one way you could do it. We got a promo going on there, so that could help you out. Got to be a member to do that. You got to be on a mid or upper level tier, and you can, take advantage of that option. And that's pretty much it. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all that you do. Thanks for being a part of the community, whether you just watch passively in the background or you participate in the chat. Appreciate all that you do, liking and sharing my videos. Hashtag 2LiveCrew for those of you watching this during the live broadcast. Hashtag Replay Crew for those watching on DVR. Hashtag Ravioli Gang for those snacking or eating dinner. And then hashtag Mod Squad for everybody with a blue wrench and a blue name for holding it down and keeping things kosher for your boy. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. That's it. Thank you all for watching the SMT podcast. We hope to see you soon for the next show. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you all in the next one. Peace.